Let's get ready to mortgage. He is the prince of programs, guru of guidelines, master of matrices. He puts the fun in funding. Please welcome Mark, Mr. Mortgage, I Tell.
All right. Hey guys, it's Mark Eitel here, and you are listening to the Mr. Mortgage Show. Guys, Happy New Year. Guys, there's nowhere else I'd rather be than right here doing the show with you and in the studio with Jen. Super excited about where we are headed in 2024. I think, if I'm being honest, I'm just relieved 2023 is over. What a crazy, crazy roller coaster ride. A craptastic 365 days was 2023. Interest rates are almost exactly where they were a year ago today, with one huge difference, a lot more optimism in the market moving into 2024. And I think some of it's blind. I'm not buying into all of it, but I'll take it. It's been a long time since people have been excited about interest rates and housing. We've gone through 2 years of people predicting a housing crash, and it's unshakable. It's crazy. It's crazy. It is supply and demand, not the cost of capital. We talk about it all the time. And I think people have a firm grasp of that moving into 2024. A lot of people are breathing a sigh of relief, myself included. Excited about that. If you are one of those people who bought into the whole marry the house and date the rate, you might want to get ready to evict that freeloading roommate of a interest rate and stick it out with the house that you married, because there's some big opportunities coming up in the refinance space. It's been a long time since people have been optimistic or enthusiastic about interest rates. And I mentioned earlier, I think blindly optimistic, because I do not think we are looking at a 4% interest rate in 2024. Where some of these people get these predictions, I'm shaking my head. And I don't see a huge spike in inventory in 2024. And think about that for a minute. Yes, lower interest rates are great if you're a buyer, because it makes your affordability go up. You can borrow more if you wanted to, or if you're smart, you borrow the same amount, you just pay less for it every month. But if sellers turn the valve off when rates passed 5%, and that was the inflection point between 5 and 6%, and you can look at the historical data to support that, why is a 6.5% interest rate suddenly going to make everybody want to sell? I don't think it is. So I think there'll be a little bit of an uptick in buyer demand. I think we will see some inventory come to the market. Maybe some people who wanted to sell last year, but they just waited the interest rate market out a little bit longer to see what would happen. I think there will be a little bit of movement there, but not a sudden flood of people coming to the market. So I've got to wait and see on that one. I believe the numbers will remain about the same as far as volume, right? Activity. Again, I don't understand why somebody who lost the loving feeling, you've lost that listing feeling. You don't want to list your house for sale because rates are 6% on the way up. Why do you want to list it at 6% now? And we're not even at 6%. So I've had some interesting conversations this week with some realtor partners throughout the country, and I just wanted to share that. I'd be curious to know what your thoughts are, and I welcome your opinions on that. But hey guys, here we are, first week of an election year, and everybody's been touting this year as the year that the Biden administration doesn't allow housing to crash. Interest rates are going to fall because it's an election year and everybody's posturing. Well, part of that's true, guys. We're seeing politicians posture already. One of the bills that we wrote about this week. Oh, hey, let me throw that out there. Guys, if you're not following us on Newsbreak is a free news feed app. It's really cool. There are a lot of contributors in a lot of categories, and you can get hyper local news about any topic that you want. We were selected to write on the national level regarding housing, politics, and economics. So I'm having a lot of fun with that. And I've written a few articles in the last week or so about the political knight in shining armor riding in to save the housing market, or at least the posturing of that. One of the articles was about the Florida, I believe it's the House Bill 31. It's the Tenant and Landlords Act, where landlords will be limited on how much they can increase the rent. And before you guys all go running out there calling Florida a rent control state, You might be surprised to know that the cap is 30%. Whoa, that's a big number. I mean, that doubles the rent every 3 years. So I think that's more of a posture. It's a great headline. It's great to be behind a bill that requires AC in rental properties, except single family and duplexes. Again, a lot of glory around the headline, but when you read the bill, not a lot of exciting news if you're a tenant. And if you're a landlord, I don't think you're stressed out by any of the legislation in that bill. Another article that got a lot of heated responses was the article titled "The Biden Administration's Bold Plan to Introduce 500,000 Affordable Starter Homes." Wow, man, did that one, I kicked an ant pile with that one. It's called the Neighborhood Homes Investment Act, and their goal is to provide incentive for builders and developers and investors to go into, what's the language here? Hold on, I'm sorry. To help transform neighborhoods across the country, needed resources to investment-starved communities, right? Blighted communities where people have pulled out. Now, I love the idea of increasing the affordable housing pool in this country. I love it. I see people all the time that are on the cusp of qualifying for a mortgage or don't qualify for a mortgage and they're drowning with their rent. So we definitely have an issue with people not being able to afford housing in some areas of the country. So I'm all for legislation that helps that. But I'm not for careless spending of taxpayers' money. And I'm not suggesting that that is going to happen here. But when I read this, here's where my mind goes. First question. Why are these areas investment starved today? We've just come out of the hottest real estate market we've ever seen. People are pouring money into all kinds of communities, overpaying for properties, buying investment properties with the landlord loan and fixing them up and renting them out. This hot real estate market has attracted so much money. Why are these areas underserved in the face of all of that? Could it be that there is external obsolescence, meaning that community doesn't serve its members anymore? Are there enough parks? Is it close to schools? Is it close to public transit? Are there plenty of grocery stores? Second question, are these housing units that are in these areas that people are going to be encouraged to use this money to go in and renovate and bring the standard up and then rent them out as affordable homes? Is there functional obsolescence in the housing unit? Mark, what's functional obsolescence? Functional obsolescence means a property's core structural components no longer meet the requirements of the residents. I grew up in a house built in the 20s. There were 2 bedrooms added to the back of the property. Well, 1 bedroom, you had to walk through the bedroom. That's right. Between the dresser and the bed, walk through the bedroom to get to the back bedroom. There was no privacy in that. That's functionally obsolescent. That's not a desirable way to live. That same unit also had a half bath at one time. The shower was added as a separate space. So if you're going to shower, you're over here. If you're using the bathroom, you're on this side. That's functionally obsolescence. And it only had that 1 bath. It wasn't pre-wired for cable. It certainly wasn't pre-wired for internet. It's built in the 20s. Does the community have internet? These are the things that we need to ask. Would we be better off to convert an abandoned government building to a modern apartment building, a neglected shopping mall to modern affordable townhomes or apartments? That's my only concern. Are we encouraging the most advantageous spending of the money for the community? Are we giving the people a community that they want to live in, that they're proud to live in, that they're going to embrace? Or are we just throwing a fresh coat of paint on something they already don't want and shoving them right back into a box that doesn't serve them? That's my only concern with that. Wow, I got up on my soapbox with that. Sorry, guys. Thanks for letting me rant a little bit. That was fun. But you hear the music, you know what that means? That's my cue. We'll be back in a few. On the other side of this very short break, we'll be back with more of the Mr. Mortgage Show.
Welcome back to the Mr. Mortgage Show. Call us now at 855-462-7292.
All right, we are back. My name is Mark Eitel, and you are listening to the Mr. Mortgage Show. And we are so excited that you're with us. If you have questions or comments and you want to get them on the air, just call or text 855-462-7292. That's 855-462-7292. That is the Anytime Hotline. And Jen is womanning the hotline, and she will get your questions on the air. If you prefer, you can head over to MrMortgageRadio.com. That's MrMortgageRadio.com. And right in the middle of the page is a big orange button that says Get Your Questions on the Air. Just click that button, follow the instructions. They'll pop up on our end, and Jen will read them on the air for you. Again, that's MrMortgageRadio.com. And hey, I did see one text that came in while we were in the break asking what was that news app that I was talking about. Guys, we are now a contributor to the Newsbreak news resource app, and you can find that at newsbreak.com or go to the App Store on your phone and download the Newsbreak app. Search for Mr. Mortgage Radio as a contributor, and then you can see all the articles that we write in our daily column, and hopefully you save us as one of your favorite sources and participate. We get a ton of comments. Some of them are pretty colorful, but we're having a lot of fun with that. Again, that's newsbreak.com. But hey, I am going to throw it Jen's way to get some questions on the air. Hey, Jen, go ahead and throw me a question.
Cynthia sent us this. Can I get a mortgage with active medical collections on my credit? My score is a 672.
Hey, Cynthia, this is a really good question. There have been lots of changes around the credit reporting of medical lates, medical collections, and all of it's been in the consumer's favor. I mean, the credit reporting agencies know how difficult medical billing is. I mean, man, trying to understand some of that is like trying to figure out which pill to take when you're watching The Matrix. It can get quite confusing. So, but let me back up and answer your question. With a medical collection, you should be okay. Now, the good news is a 672 credit score. If you're using FHA, man, you're in the meaty part of the curve, so you should be fine. I just want to make sure we're talking about a collection and not a judgment, because the chronological order, if you will, is a late and then a collection and then a judgment or a charge-off. So just make sure it's a collection, because if it's a judgment, the answer could be different. But if you're using an FHA loan and you have medical collections, you should be okay. Although I would be much more comfortable answering this question if we had a quick conversation so I could better understand, and if I could see the collections, even if it's on a Credit Karma report, and get an idea of exactly what we're talking about. But to answer your question, you should be okay. So don't be discouraged. It's definitely worth taking the next step and having a conversation either with us or with another mortgage lender, especially if you're using an FHA mortgage. So I hope that helps. I'm here if you need me. Thank you for that one. Hey, Jen, throw me another question.
Yaz sent this text. My husband makes the money, but I have a better credit score. Is there a way to use his income but my credit?
Hey, Yaz, another great question. I wish, man, oh man, do I wish. And it's not uncommon that the wife has the better credit score, even if she's the one that makes the money, which is another thing that's not uncommon. So how it works is if two borrowers apply together, right, borrower and co-borrower, the lower of the two middle scores is what's used for underwriting in almost all scenarios. So as much as I would love to say yes, there's not a way presently to use just your score and just his income. Now, I don't know what his score is. I would encourage you to at least have the conversation, because there are loan programs, especially in the FHA world, that have a wide range of credit score opportunity. Now, some of them may require a 5 or 10% down payment, depending on the score, but I would encourage you to at least have the conversation. And if you know the scores, that's helpful. You can just have a conversation over the phone to see if that score qualifies. So guys, credit score, income, assets, and property are the four legs of any. You hear me talk about it all the time. The mortgage application is like a stool. If you've got all four legs, you've got a stable stool that you can jump up and down on. But oftentimes with just three of those legs, that stool will still stand. Now, with the lower credit scores, sometimes it's not the score that's the problem. It's the derogatory credit that's pulling the score down. So I would encourage you to have a further conversation. And to back all the way up and answer the question, if we're using both incomes, we're using the lower of the two credit scores. So hope that helps. I know it's not the answer you wanted, but I certainly appreciate you shooting us the question. Hey, Jen, can we squeeze in another question? Go ahead.
This one is from Kevin. I've heard you talk about gifting equity. Does this work on all property types? I'm considering selling my son a triplex.
Hey, Kevin, you guys are bringing great questions today. Man, oh man, everybody must have just charged up over the holiday break, and you're bringing the A game. So another great question. Guys, the gift of equity strategy is an awesome way for one family member to sell to another. And in often cases, you can work the math so that the buyer is not bringing any money to the table. It's really, really a great strategy. You're just gifting them the equity position or a portion of the equity position. Now, Kevin, to answer your question, if it's going to be a gift of equity, it's going to need to be his primary residence. And the good news is, up to 4 units, it can be his primary residence. And man, what an amazing gift if that's how this is shaking out. If you're selling him the triplex and he's going to move into it as his primary and collect rent on 2 of the 3 doors, what a great, great way to get started in homeownership and in building a real estate portfolio, because eventually he can move out and turn that into a rental property. So great, great question. The answer is yes, up to 4 units, as long as your son or whoever the recipient of the equity gift is going to use the property as their primary residence, meaning they're going to move in and occupy that as their primary in one of the units, and they can rent the rest of the property out. But great, great question. I hope that helps. And what a brilliant, brilliant way to help your son get started. Guys, this is a brilliant, brilliant strategy. Think about this for a minute. Kevin, man, good on you for putting your son in this position. He can own his primary residence that's generating maybe even positive cash flow, but certainly offset cash flow and building equity in a property. And if the math shakes out, he can do this with no money out of pocket. Wow. I love this one. Thanks for that question. Hey guys, you hear the music? You know what that means? That's my cue. We'll be back in a few. Sit tight on the other side of this very short break. We'll be back with more of the Mr. Mortgage Show. Hey, it's Mark Eitel, host of the Mr. Mortgage Show, and I'm going to interrupt this commercial break to ask you for a favor. If you know any friends, family, coworkers, or the guy in front of you at the grocery line who's talking or thinking about buying or selling or refinancing real estate, I'm hoping I can count on you to help me spread the word, introduce them to me, to the team. You can do that by simply sharing MrMortgageRadio.com. That's MrMortgageRadio.com. Guys, it's Mark Eitel, NMLS 1929005. Now, back to the commercials.
Welcome back to the Mr. Mortgage Show. Call us now at 855-462-7292.
All right, we are back. My name is Mark Eitel, and you are listening to the Mr. Mortgage Show. Friends, if you have questions or comments and you want to get them on the air, just call or text 855-462-7292. That's 855-462-7292. That is the Anytime Hotline. Jen is womanning the hotline, and she'll get your questions on the air. Or just head over to MrMortgageRadio.com. That's MrMortgageRadio.com. And right in the middle of the page, you can't miss it, there's a big orange button that says Get Your Questions on the Air. If you click that button, follow the instructions, your question will pop up on our end, and Jen will read it on the air for you. Hey, but without further ado, let's throw it to Jen and keep those questions coming. Hey, Jen, when you're ready, go ahead.
Nelson sent this. Can I buy an investment property if I don't own a home? I currently rent and have been looking for a place, but I found a great deal on an investment property.
Hey, Nelson, this is a great question, my man. Yes, you can. So if you're going to use the landlord loan or a DSCR loan, make sure that you are intending this to be a rental property, because there is an occupancy disclosure in the package that clearly states you're buying this to rent. You're not buying it to occupy. But you don't have to own a primary residence first. You can buy the rental property before you buy the primary. And we've seen this happen on several occasions, especially during COVID. There were several people who were renting a place, and the landlord said, hey, I'm going to capitalize on this crazy market. I'm going to sell. Do you want to buy it? And the tenants, well, I would buy it as an investment. I don't want to buy it to live in. And they bought the property as an investment property, moved out, rented it out, followed all the rules. But I've seen that happen where people are renting until they can buy and had the opportunity to buy the unit that they were renting. So I hope I didn't confuse you, but I just wanted to share that example because you're not alone. It's happened before, and it happens often, especially when you're out there looking. You might find an opportunity to buy an awesome rental property. So great question. And the answer is yes, you can buy an investment property if you don't currently own the primary residence. Just keep in mind, there's that occupancy affidavit that's in all of the DSCR loans. So some people do try to bend the rules, and I'm not suggesting this is you, and use the DSCR loan as a way to do essentially a no income verification loan, because the landlord loan, we use the rental income or the projected rental income if it's vacant of the property to underwrite the mortgage, meaning your income is not analyzed, just the property's income. So if we're not looking at your income and that property is no longer a rental, it's really your primary, there's no way to know that there's income there to support it. So some people try to slide one under the fence and call a primary an investment property. And some people call that reverse occupancy fraud, because occupancy fraud traditionally is when you're buying a property and calling it your primary and you never intend in living in it. In this instance, you would be buying the property, calling it an investment property, but always intending on living in it. So just be aware of it. Occupancy fraud is a real thing. And as the market has slowed down, more and more files are being audited. So, but to answer your question, I'm sure you're not one of these guys that are trying to circumvent the rules. Yes, you can buy the investment property first. Great question. Hey, Jen, throw me another question.
Veronica emailed this one. I see mortgage rates coming down a little, but the equity line rates are still high. When will they start coming down?
Veronica. Who was that? Elvis Costello? Veronica. Anyway, clearly my singing has gotten no better in the new year. Interestingly enough, mortgage rates aren't tied to prime or what the Fed moves, right? The Fed moves the overnight rate, which is directly tied to the prime rate, which is what equity lines are tied to. So until the Federal Reserve starts lowering rates, if you believe that's going to happen, that's when you'll see credit card rates come down, HELOC rates, home equity lines of credit, come down. But until the Fed starts cutting, that's not going to happen. And actually, this is a really good segue, if you will. We're seeing more and more people who were thinking of an equity line to pay off debt, realizing that the equity line interest rate is 10%, 11%, 12%. They can do a debt consolidation refi, use our rec refi, for example, and pay debt off and have an interest rate of 6.5 or 6.25 with a slight buy down. My point is that blended rate calculation with that equity line up there at 10 or 12% is causing some people to rethink that strategy and just dive into a rec refi. And I'm not suggesting that's right for you, and I'm not suggesting that's underlying your question. I'm just tossing that out there because we are seeing that happen. So great question. I know it's super confusing. We see mortgage rates move, but we don't see equity line rates move or vice versa. And it's just an interesting world. They all have a tendency, typically, long-term trends, to move together, but they're influenced by very, very different things. So we have these circumstances that we're in right now where mortgage rates have pulled back and no other debt has had any easing in rates. So brilliant question. If you want to dive deep on that, call me off the air. Guys, I geek out on this stuff. I love talking about it. So if anybody has questions, please reach out. I'd love to have a conversation. Hey, Jen, let's get another question on the air. What do you have?
Corey sent us this. Who pays for a construction loan while the house is being built? Is it us or the builder?
Okay, Corey, great question. Man, I'm really impressed with the questions we've gotten today. You guys are bringing the A game. I said that once before. I'm really impressed. So, to answer your question, nobody. Well, let's back up. If you have a one-off builder, like a small custom home builder, not like a big tract builder, you can get the mortgage in your name with them as the builder. Nobody is paying that mortgage during construction because there is what's called an interest reserve built in to the loan amount. So during construction, it only requires interest payments. So let's use round numbers and say there's a $100,000 loan and 10% interest. And it's going to take a year to build. So that's $10,000 in interest if all of the numbers stay round. And I know they don't, but for illustration, the loan would have a $10,000 interest reserve. So in that example, the loan would be for $110,000 with that $10,000 being in there to service its own debt. So it's self-servicing debt until the property is CO'd, right? Certificate of occupancy, all the final inspections, and then you convert to, most commonly, a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. So you'll close on the construction loan and then convert to a mortgage. And at that point, payments are required. Now, when I mentioned not one of the big tract home builders, those guys operate a little bit differently. They've got a master line of credit and they're servicing that debt. But if you're doing a construction perm loan and you're using a smaller one-off builder, that interest reserve is built in. So in none of these instances are you paying the payments during construction. So I hope that helps. We're seeing more and more people looking to new construction, whether it's the tract home builders, the big builders, because they can offer incentives, they can buy your rate down. That's great. But there are others who say, hey, I want to live in this awesome neighborhood. I found a lot. I paid cash for the lot, or I put a big down payment down on the lot. I found my builder because I can't find the home I'm looking for in the neighborhood I want to live in. So I'm just going to build it. And we're seeing more and more interest in the construction to perm loan. Guys, if you have any questions regarding construction perm, who pays, when they pay, how much you can borrow, is the lot equity, just call me or text me. I'll be happy to have a discussion with you. I grew up in a family of home builders. I love this stuff. And I love the idea of building the home you want, the way you want it, where you want it. I think that's a great opportunity if you can pull it off. That's a great question. One of my favorite topics, the old custom home builders. Anyway, guys, you hear the music. You know what that means? That's my cue. We'll be back in a few. Sit tight on the other side of this very short break. We'll be back with more of the Mr. Mortgage Show.
Welcome back to the Mr. Mortgage Show. Call us now at 855-462-7292.
All right, we're back. My name is Mark Eitel, and you are locked and loaded right here on the Mr. Mortgage Show. Man, I am so excited that you chose to spend a bit of your day with us. If you have questions or comments and you want them on the air, just call or text 855-462-7292. That's 855-462-7292. That is the Anytime hotline. And Jen is womaning the hotline, and she'll get your questions on the air. Or head over to MrMortgageRadio.com. That's MrMortgageRadio.com. Right in the middle of the page is a big orange button that says, get your questions on the air. It's all super self-explanatory. Just click that orange button, follow the instructions, and Jen will read your question on the air. Hey, but speaking of Jen reading questions, let me throw it to Jen right now.
Sal wants to know, I make plenty of money and can afford around a 50% down payment. But my credit is a little shaky since my divorce. It's in the 600s. Is there a mortgage that would work for me? The house is around $500,000.
Hey, Big Poppy. Sal, I make plenty of money and I got money in the bank. You shouldn't have a hard time finding a new wife, brother. Hey, all kidding aside, great question. So the three-legged stool and the four-legged stool. That's right. I'm bringing that analogy out, and it's not even dusty because I used it earlier today. Guys, income, assets, credit, property. Those are the four legs of the stool, right? Super stable stool. All four legs are there. A three-legged stool will also stand. A little shaky, but it'll stand. And Sal is the perfect example. He's got the income. He's got the assets. We're going to assume that the property appraises for $500,000. So that's the third leg. The fourth leg, which might need some attention, is the credit score. Now, the good news is a credit score in the 600s, you certainly would qualify score-wise for FHA. Now, you heard me say earlier, sometimes it's not the score, it's what's on the credit report that's pulling the score down. That might be an issue. But to answer your question, Sal, you may not have to put 50% down. If that's your goal, you certainly are broadening your opportunity with more and more loan programs, the lower the loan to value. And as long as we can document that income, I don't see a challenge. Now, I say that, guys, I say that without having seen the credit report because credit score is important, but it's only part of the equation. What is posting on the credit report that's making up that score? So that's my only hesitation. But Sal, I think you got a lot to work with, my man. And ladies, if you're looking for a big spender, Sal may be available. No, I'm kidding. I'm having fun with you, brother. I appreciate the question. I'd welcome the opportunity to have a conversation off the air just to get a better understanding of the credit component. But it sounds like you have three of the four legs and probably stand a pretty good chance of getting that mortgage. So if you'd like to talk, reach out. I would love to have a quick conversation with you and see if we can't figure this out. Hey, Jen, throw me another question.
Samantha sent us this one. I've seen a few homes listed as rent to own. They're not with a company, just a regular person, so I'm a little nervous about being scammed. How does this typically work? I mean, does part of the rent go towards a down payment?
Hey, Sam, this is a great question, and you are right to be concerned about a scam. Just Google rent-to-own Craigslist scams, and you'll see. With that being said, there are a lot of good people that offer the rent-to-own strategy. I'm thinking of my friend John, who sold several properties this way, and it's a great way, if you're not credit ready, to get the house that you want and build up either your credit score over time. What's keeping you from being mortgage ready right now? You have that time to work on it. And in a lot of instances, a portion of your rent payment does go to your deposit, but all of that has to be spelled out up front, and you'll want that held in an escrow account every month. So if you're going to do this and it's private individual and private individual, I would strongly suggest talking to a real estate attorney to draft the document up to protect both of you. So the landlord typically will apply a small percentage of the rent towards a future down payment, and you could have built into the agreement, say after 12 months or after 24 months or after 36 months, a set price and a set amount of down payment built up in this escrow account for you to pull the trigger on the transaction. Most of the time it's around a 3-year, I don't want to say option because I want to explain what a lease option is, but usually it's somewhere between 1 and 3 years is the purchase portion of the rent to own. So just throwing that out there. Lease options feel very similar to a rent to own, but they're typically all of the rent payment goes to the landlord and you've agreed to a predetermined price at a predetermined date. So it could look something like a $2,000 a month lease payment, and after 12 months, I'm paying $350,000 for the house. And if I go past that period of time, I'm given the opportunity to renew, and it's another $2,000 a month. And after 24 months, I'm paying maybe $20,000 more. There's usually a step-up appreciation in a lease option. But lease option is I'm renting it from you, and we've determined a price and a date. You'll let me buy it. rent to own is more along the lines of the way you described this, where a portion of your rent goes towards your down payment. Now, that's not always the case. That's why I suggest having an attorney draft it up, and the attorney could even collect the rent payment, put a portion of it in their escrow account on your behalf, and pay the landlord the balance. But it's a great, great strategy to get the property now and get yourself mortgage ready. So I love this question. I appreciate it. And again, happy to dive deep with you if you'd like to have a conversation off the air. Hey, Jen, let's get another question in.
This one is from Kenny. Are we limited to the type of debts we can pay off with the rec refinance? I really want to pay off everything. Me too, Kenny.
Me too, Jen and Kenny. Hey, great question, my man. Great question. Assuming you have enough equity, you can pay off everything. You're not limited to a certain type of debt that can be paid off. You're limited only by the equity that you have. So if you have a house that's, $1 million and you owe $600,000, you could borrow $800,000, pull $200 out to pay off all your debts. So I hope that helps. The equity portion is what's going to dictate what can be paid off. And one very, very cool thing about a debt consolidation loan is those debts can be taken out of your debt to income calculation now, knowing they're going to be paid at closing. And that's another reason we talked a little bit earlier about equity line versus debt consolidation in instances like this. With an equity line, you can't take those debts out of the equation. With a rec refinance or a traditional debt consolidation home refinance, you can. And that broadens your chances of approval, because if you've got a $500 car payment and an $800 credit card and $2,000 on the boat, well, guess what? If all that's getting paid at closing, all that debt can be taken out of your calculation now, which a lot of people find super, super helpful. So great, great question. All right, Jen, let's try to squeeze in one more. I'm feeling lucky.
Harry has this question. If we take a reverse mortgage, who pays the taxes and insurance? We don't currently have a mortgage.
Hey, Harry, this is a great, great question. You do. You're responsible for the insurance. You're responsible for the taxes. You don't have to make a monthly mortgage payment. That accrues. So your balance is growing. All of those payments are deferred until the end of the loan period. But the taxes, the insurance, any maintenance, and any association dues, if there are any, have to be paid by you. And in a lot of instances, people aren't prepared for this. You may have to increase your insurance amount because it's going to be based on your new loan amount. And that's another thing we're seeing a big uptick in interest in is the reverse mortgage, because for the right person, in the right scenario, it can be life-changing. It's not right for everybody, guys. I say it all the time, but it's a powerful tool to take the financial pressure off each month and allow you to enjoy some of that equity now. And Harry, there are so many moving parts to a reverse mortgage that I would invite you to give us a call. I would love to jump on the phone with you, spend as much time as you need just to walk you through it, because not only are there a ton of misconceptions, there are a lot of confusing parts about the reverse mortgage. And I'm a big fan of the product, but again, it's not right for everybody. Hey guys, you hear the music? Man, oh man, that was fast. You know what that means? We have come to the end of the very first Mr. Mortgage Show of 2024. Guys, if you need us when we're not on the air, check out MrMortgageRadio.com. That's the easiest way. Everything's there. MrMortgageRadio.com. One more time for you in the back. I see you trying to write this down. MrMortgageRadio.com. All right, guys, have an amazing week. Jen and I will be back next week right here, same time, same station.
That's a wrap. Join Mark Eitel next week for more thrilling, edge-of-your-seat discussions about real estate and mortgages right here on The Mr. Mortgage Show.